So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time within 30 minutes so that you are left with some time for covering other parts of your UPSC syllabus in the entire day. Now, just watching this lecture would be job half done because just after watching this lecture, you need to revise it as well. Because revision helps in consolidating these current affairs in your memory. Otherwise, you'll quickly forget them. Now, you can revise these current affairs from our notes, and these notes are provided on our Telegram channel. Now, the link to our Telegram channel is provided in the comment section below this video. You just have to click on that link and you'll be taken to our Telegram channel, and from there you can download the notes for this lecture. Alright, let's begin today's discussion. But first, let's take a look at the topics we shall cover in today's lecture. Okay? So we have a list of 4 topics that are going to be covered in today's lecture. Number 1 topic is Fort William of Kolkata, which is also the Eastern Command, Indian Army's Eastern Command's headquarters, will be renamed to Vijay Durg. Okay? So we'll talk about this. Then Teesta River, Sikkim's Teesta River, and it flows in West Bengal also. A dam is being constructed over there, and that construction of that dam has become controversial. So we'll talk about Teesta River and this Teesta-3 hydropower project's controversy. Then recently in this budget, Finance Minister launched Grameen credit score. This will allow financial inclusion of rural women entrepreneurs and self-help groups. Basically, this will allow rural women entrepreneurs to get loans, credit cards from banks. So we'll talk about this. And we'll talk about sacred groves, because recently Supreme Court has come out with a judgment with respect to sacred groves which threatens their sustainability. Okay, so we'll talk about sacred groves, what they are, and what is the legal issue surrounding them, which took the matter to doors of Supreme Court. Okay, so these are the 4 issues that we are going to discuss today. Let's start with topic number 1, which is Fort William to be named Vijay Durg. Now, Fort William is Indian Army's Eastern Command's headquarters in Kolkata. Okay. Now, it was constructed by the British, basically East India Company. When East India Company arrived in India through Bengal to protect their interests in the region of Bengal in Calcutta, they had constructed this fort, a defensive fortification. Okay. Then this fort stayed with the British government. Then when India got independence, Indian Army shifted its Eastern Command's headquarters to this fort. Okay. Now, the name of this fort is Fort William. It is being changed to Vijay Durg as a part of this government's decolonization efforts. Okay. We want to rid ourselves from all the colonial names, colonial things, and we want to create our own. So these are decolonization efforts. Now, this historic fortress built by British in 1781 has been renamed Vijayadurg, paying homage to the oldest fort on Maharashtra, Sindhugarh Fort. So Sindhugarh is an area in Maharashtra, and there is a fort called Sindhugarh Fort. That fort is also known as Vijayadurg Fort, and it was constructed by Chhatrapati Shivaji. Okay, so taking inspiration from this Sindhugarh fort, this Fort William is being named Vijayadurg. So remember this fact. Now, about the historical background of this. Look, Fort William was originally built in 1696. The construction started in 1696 and it got completed in 1706. Done by British East India Company under Sir John Goldsborough. Okay. Then, in 1756, basically, 1756 and 57, this fort was attacked by Nawab of Bengal, Sirajud-Dowla. Okay, and it was destroyed. Then Battle of Plassey was fought between the British and the Nawab, and the British won, and the British started repairing this fort. Okay, so the current fort that we see now was built between 1758 to 1781 after Battle of Plassey under the supervision of Sir Robert Clive. Now, why was this fort called Fort William? It was named after King William III of England. It was destroyed by Nawab of Bengal Sirajud-Dowla. The British regained control after Battle of Plassey under Clive. Okay. Now, certain key facts that you need to be aware of with respect to this fort because questions might be asked. So, let's talk about that. So, currently, it is used as Indian Army's Eastern Command's headquarters. Okay, this Fort William also houses a war memorial and a museum showing 1971 Indo-Pakistan War, Bangladesh Liberation War. Okay, now the thing is, do you know when Siraj-ud-Daulah attacked Fort William? Okay, he basically caught all the British officials in Fort William and imprisoned them in a very narrow room, very small room. So uh, he basically captured all these people and fitted them in a very narrow room. These people died of asphyxiation. They couldn't breathe because in such a small room there were so many people packed in. Okay, this is known as black hole tragedy in colonial historical documents. Siraj-ud-Daulah did this, and that is why the Brits fought Battle of Plassey. Okay, so this black hole tragedy also took place in Fort William. Then the architecture of this fort, basically it is a star-shaped fort for enhanced defense capabilities. It was made to better defend British or East India Company's interests. It is spread over 70 hectares, and it was one of the largest British era military structures. Now, it's not just that Indian government has now started Indianizing various things about Fort William. Before changing the name of Fort William, India named Kitchener House as Manekshaw House and St. George's Gate as Shivaji Gate. So already the process has been, or the already the process was started before changing the name of Fort William. All right. Okay. Topic number 2, which is Teesta-3 Dam project. So a recent decision by Expert Committee of Environment Ministry allowed the reconstruction of Teesta-3 hydropower project in Sikkim that was destroyed earlier. Okay, so a dam was built on the Teesta River in Sikkim. Okay, but that dam was destroyed because of a natural disaster in Sikkim, because of floods in Sikkim in 2023. So Sikkim underwent massive floods which destroyed this dam as well. So this dam was is being reconstructed. Now, many environmental experts and local people were saying that this dam would harm environmental safety, okay, and local. Basically, this dam is not good for the ecology of the region, and local population and environmentalists were fighting against the reconstruction of this dam. Okay, but recently, a committee under Environment Ministry said that this dam should go ahead, and they approved this. The thing is that Congress government is opposing this. Naturally, it is in the opposition. But even the state BJP, Sikkim BJP, is opposing it. So the central government is saying that we should go ahead with this project. Okay, but Sikkim BJP is saying that no, because local people are against it. Okay, so this is the controversy surrounding this Teesta-3 Dam. It was a dam earlier, but it got destroyed under floods. It got destroyed by floods in Sikkim in 2023. It is being reconstructed, but that reconstruction was opposed by environmentalists and local population. But Environmental Ministry has given a go ahead. Okay, now about Teesta River. So, this Teesta River is a snow fed river. Most of its waters come from a glacier. Okay, so it originates from Solhamo Lake in Himalayas near Pahurni and Khangse glaciers in Sikkim. Now, this river, basically, as you can see over here in the map, this river originates in Sikkim, then flows through West Bengal, and then joins Brahmaputra River in Bangladesh. Okay, so this river basically flows through Sikkim and West Bengal and joins Brahmaputra River in Bangladesh. Now, Brahmaputra River is called Jamuna River in Bangladesh. You should remember this. Okay. Now, currently, Teesta River is part of a water sharing dispute between India and Bangladesh because Bangladesh wants equitable distribution of Teesta waters. But there is no agreement between India and Bangladesh regarding sharing of waters. Okay. But Bangladesh wants that we should conclude a Teesta water sharing agreement, much like Ganga Water Treaty of 1996 between India and Bangladesh, under which Ganga river waters that flow from West Bengal to Bangladesh, they are shared equitably. Like Indus Water Treaty, there was Ganga Water Treaty. with Bangladesh. Okay. Now, Bangladesh wants a similar treaty with respect to Teesta River, on the lines of Ganga Water Treaty. All right. But the agreement is, the agreement is still under negotiation. All right. Now, significance or key features of Teesta River. Well, it has a lot of irrigation and hydropower potential. Basically, that is the reason why dams are being constructed on this. Okay. But because this river originates from higher reaches of Himalayas, and higher reaches of Himalayas have glaciers. Now, these glaciers, when they melt, they make glacial lakes. Sometimes these glacial lakes, surrounded by mountains, they break out, and it leads to glacial lake outburst flood. This is what happened in 2023 Sikkim flood disaster. Okay, so this river is vulnerable to glacial lake outburst flood, GLOF. Plus, this river is also known as the lifeline of Sikkim. Okay, because it provides irrigation waters and whatnot, biodiversity, everything. All right. Now let's move to topic number 3, which is Grameen Credit Score. The budget of 2025-26 launched Grameen Credit Score, a digital framework designed to assess the credit worthiness of rural women entrepreneurs and self-help groups. Look, the thing is, we like people like us who live in urban areas. Okay, sometimes we need loans. Okay, and we get these loans from banks. But before giving us any loan, these banks check our credit score. Okay. Now, credit score is available with CIBIL score. They call it CIBIL score. Okay. Now, this score actually gives the bank an idea about my credit worthiness. Basically, whether giving a loan to me is risky or not. Okay. Whether I will return the money back or not. All of this can be guessed through a credit score. So, my past history, my past transactions are looked into. Okay. If 5 years back I took a loan and didn't pay that back, then my credit score would be poor. Okay. And if I have always paid my obligations back, then my credit score would be good. If I have never defaulted on my credit card payments, my credit score would be good. So, based on my credit score, interest rate is decided on this loan. Okay. So, banks always look at your credit score before giving you loans. The problem is that rural areas or in remote rural areas where there are women entrepreneurs, where there are women self help groups, where there are tribal self help groups, these people do not have any credit score. Okay. And that is why they face a lot of difficulty in accessing loans or credit cards from banks, which they need for their business, micro enterprises. So, Grameen Credit Score basically is an attempt in that direction, which will provide credit scores through a digital platform to women entrepreneurs, rural women entrepreneurs, and self help groups. Now, through this, they will get access to banking sector credit or formal credit. So, this will lead to financial inclusion. Currently, they are excluded from India's formal financial system and they are dependent on money lenders, local money lenders. Okay. Now, key features of this Grameen credit score: it will use digital data to evaluate credit worthiness of self-help groups, rural women-based women entrepreneurs based on their financial transactions, repayment history, and business activities. Okay, so based on their previous transaction, their payment history with respect to any previous loans and business activities, they would be given a credit score. And if that credit score is high, they will get loans easily. This would lead to financial inclusion. Financial institutions like public sector banks, regional rural banks, okay, microfinance institutions, all these will use this credit score to offer specialized, customized financial products such as loans, credit cards to rural women and self help groups. Now, remember this. This Grameen Credit Score scheme is implemented by public sector banks of India. So, all the public sector banks of India will design the scheme and implement the scheme. All right. What would be the advantages? Financial inclusion, tailor made loans for micro enterprises, economic empowerment of women, poverty alleviation. All right. Okay. And now let's move to the last news item of the day, which is sacred grooves. Okay. Now, to understand what was in the news, you need to know what sacred grooves are. Okay. Now, UNESCO has defined them as an area of natural vegetation preserved through local taboos and sanctions that entail spiritual and ecological values. What this definition means is that certain areas are considered sacred. Certain forest areas are considered sacred by the local tribal communities. Okay, they consider them sacred, these areas as sacred. They believe that there are some spirits that protect them, or they have many religious or ritualistic aspects related to these areas. These forest areas are considered sacred. Okay, and that is why these tribals protect them. Okay, they protect them. They don't allow any harm to come to them. They don't want their destruction. And when government or private people arrive at this place and they say they will create a high rise building over here, they fight against those developmental projects tooth and nail. Okay, these areas, these forest areas which are considered sacred by local populations and hence they protect them, are called sacred groves. Okay, now generally, as per Indian law, all forest areas come under the control of government, state or central government. But these sacred groves, okay, these sacred groves are put under the community ownership of the local population, because these areas are sacred for the local population. So they are not taken under government control. They are or their management is given to the local population. So the local population which considers these areas sacred, they manage this area and government doesn't interfere. Now these villages, local villages or local populations, because they live in villages, okay, so these local populations also have gram sabha and gram panchayats. So the management or the control of these sacred groves fall under gram sabha. That means the local population manages it, not the government. Okay, they are deliberately left under the control of local people because local people consider this area as sacred, and that is why they protect it. So government doesn't need to step in to protect these forest areas or environmentally sensitive areas. Yes. Now this power to manage these sacred groves yourself, this power to the tribal communities comes from Forest Rights Act. Okay, so there is this law called Forest Rights Act. This act recognizes community ownership of these sacred groves, that communities will manage it. Okay, the thing is, there is this another law called Wildlife Protection Act. Under this, all forest areas should be under the control of government. Now, both these laws are in conflict when it comes to sacred groves. Wildlife Protection Act says that you need to basically put these sensitive forest areas under government control. Forest Rights Act says that some areas should be put under community ownership. Okay, now let's talk about the news. So Supreme Court in December 18, 2024 ordered directed Rajasthan government to map and classify sacred groves as forests under Wildlife Protection Act. So Supreme Court told Rajasthan government to first identify these sacred groves and categorize them as forests under Wildlife Protection Act. That would put the control of these sacred groves under government and away from the community ownership. Okay. Earlier in 1996 too, Supreme Court in T.N. Godavarman and Union of India established that any land with forest characteristics should be considered forest land. And if any area is declared as forest land, then it would be put under government control. All right. That is why these sacred groves are not categorized as forest areas. Okay. Though they are very much like forest, but they are not categorized as forest, because if they are categorized as forest, they would be put under government ownership. Clear? But Supreme Court says in 1996 and the recent order that these sacred groves are also forests and they should be categorized as such under Wildlife Protection Act and they should be put under government control. Now, this would be contradictory to the provisions of Forest Rights Act 2006, which upholds community ownership over forest lands and puts them under the control of Gram Sabha. Now, if this order of Supreme Court is followed, then community ownerships of these sacred lands would go away from these local people, which shouldn't happen. Okay, that is why government came out with Forest Rights Act, so that these lands, which are considered sacred by certain communities, should be controlled by these communities because these lands are sacred to them, right? But current Supreme Court order goes against the spirit of Forest Rights Act. That's the legal controversy. Now let's talk about sacred groves a little bit more. So we know about UNESCO definition. How many sacred groves are there in India? Well, it is said that around 1 lakh to 150,000 sacred groves exists in India, and they are found everywhere in India. But they are found the most in Western Ghats, states of Karnataka, Tamil, Kerala, okay, Northeast India, and tribal belts of Central India like Odisha, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, in these areas. So these sacred groves are found in these areas the most. Plus, these areas are those areas where tribals are also in high numbers, exist in high numbers. Clear? Now, why it is important to protect sacred groves? Because sacred groves give us a lot of advantages, or protection of sacred groves have a lot of advantages. First of all, biodiversity conservation. These areas are repositories of rich medicinal plants, wild relatives of crops, and many important species. So there is rich biodiversity with respect to plants, rich biodiversity with respect to animals. Plus, some plants have medicinal properties, and these medicinal properties are important for the local population. So that these sacred groves also help in water conservation because they aid in aquifer or groundwater recharge, soil conservation. Plus, they have religious and cultural significance for the local population. Plus, some minor forest produce like honey, timber, medicinal roots, leaves, all these things are taken by or harvested by local population, and they are sold in the market. So this provides some economic sustenance to these tribal communities also. Plus, if you'll protect the forest, well, these forests absorb carbon dioxide from the air, thereby helping in climate change and disaster management. All right, so these are the advantages of sacred groves. Now, how are sacred groves in India threatened? First of all, rapid urbanization leads to encroachment of this land. They are threatened. Then there are legal issues like the current one, like the current Supreme Court order threatens these sacred groves in Rajasthan. Plus, sometimes due to some mistakes, some invasive species are introduced in these areas, which destroy the local biodiversity of the region. Okay, so these are some of the threats which would be mentioned in your notes. Don't worry about them. All right. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And please do not forget to revise this lecture because revision helps in remembering these current affairs for longer periods of time. All right. And on that note, I'll be signing off. Thank you so much, everyone.